Carolina rig in the wintertime, probably the most underrated and overlooked time of year for the Carolina rig. Now, it is definitely not wintertime here right now. As you could tell, it's still kind of warm, but we're getting into it. It's coming on very soon. Don't overlook the Carolina rig. Now, what is exactly the Carolina rig? It's when you have a weight on your line. Sometimes you have a bead, swivel, knot protector, then your swivel, and then a leader that leads into your hook and the business end, that little snack morsel. This is a Missile Baits Baby Destroyer. It's my number one year-round bait on a Carolina rig, but the Carolina rig, it's a bait that you're gonna throw, let sink to the bottom, and then you're gonna drag across the bottom till you feel that cover, let that bait bounce over, let the weight bounce over, then you're gonna be able to, you feel every little thing that bait does. You can feel the bottom. You know, if you don't have forward-facing sonar, it is also a great way to feel what's under there. If you don't know what's out there, maybe you're fishing from the bank, maybe you're fishing from a boat that doesn't even have a depth finder, you can take a Carolina rig, make 4 or 5 casts and realize, okay, there's a rock pile out here, there's some kind of stump looking thing over here, it feels like, and then there's not much in between. So you can find cover very effective with that Carolina rig. I typically, year-round, I'm gonna throw it on a bait caster. You can throw a Carolina rig on a spinning rod, that's fine, but the principles are gonna be kind of the same. I throw a 7 foot 3 inch, this is a Cashin medium heavy, fast taper. So what that means is it's got a faster taper on it, but it's not extra fast. It's not super stiff. It's got a good backbone, but it's still definitely a medium heavy. You don't wanna have too stiff of a rod to throw the Carolina rig. In that winter time, I like to have a little longer leader. For some reason, I think it, you know, just like in the post-spawn period, you want to, in the winter time, you want to have at least a 3 foot type leader. Sometimes I'll go to even a 4 or 5 foot in the winter time. Something about just being a little more lethargic, something about that bait lagging a little bit further behind the weight in that winter time. In the wintertime, you got to think about what is going on. Got cooler temperatures, colder water. The fish are going to be typically further down in the water column, and they're going to be feeding on, a lot of times in the winter, dead shad. Those shad are dying off. They're falling to the bottom. Those fish are programmed to be looking for stuff that's kind of lifeless, kind of stuff that's flopping around on the bottom. Sometimes a fluke style bait can be really good in the wintertime, but I've still caught a ton of fish on the Baby Destroyer in the wintertime. That's just probably my go-to. Green pumpkin flash is a good one. That little bit of flash, I think, gives off the presence of bait fish, kind of, you know, a little something's going on, a little sparkle. That hook right there is a Gamakatsu offset shank round bend worm hook. The 3/0 is kind of my standard. I've caught a zillion fish on that hook right there. It is really, really good, especially in that wintertime period. Anytime on a Carolina rig, it is good. But that Carolina rig, it is very effective for fishing those deeper areas where those fish are going to be in the wintertime. Points also can be, you know, that's a great place to start. Humps can be very good. But a lot of times in the wintertime, it's probably the places you want to look for here. You've got these long points that drop off into a deeper channel. So you may have a long point that comes 100, 200, 300 yards off the bank, long point, maybe 10 feet, it may taper all the way down to 20 feet, but then it drops off into that river channel to where it's going to go into 40 feet, 60 feet, 100 feet of water. Where that long tapering point drops off into the river channel, that is a primo classic type place that you're going to look for in the wintertime. Those fish are going to be using that. You might have a hump that comes up to, you know, 15 or 20 feet, but it's deep on all sides. Another classic Carolina rig type place in the wintertime. That's what you're going to look for. But we skipped over the line. We touched on the rod, that 7.3 medium heavy is the deal. I want a high speed reel, even though it's the winter time, we're gonna be fishing this thing a little bit slower. High speed reel is the way that you effectively and efficiently reel the bait in quickly and get it back out to the next location. High speed, this is a 7 reel, the GSC model, 8.1 to 1 gear ratio. High gear ratio makes it's just more efficient to fish. 20-pound Sunline shooter. This is the shooter spool, is what it looks like. Also this is the 14. This is the leader that I'll put below that Spro power swivel. So I'll have the 20-pound mainline, a 1/2 ounce up to a 1 ounce weight. Then I'll have a little bead on there and then a knot protector. So when that bait is, or that weight is clanking around in there, you're not gonna be beating up that knot. And then I have that Spro power swivel, 14-pound Sunline shooter, fluorocarbon. You wanna have that fluorocarbon because fluorocarbon is very dense. That dense line is what transmits all those little sensitive rocks, all the sand, all the grass, all that stuff that you're feeling down there. Those signals are transmitted so much better through fluorocarbon than any other type of line. So down to 14-pound, and then that Gamakatsu hook with that bait. There are times that I will go with a little swim bait, like a Spro, like a Missile Baits Shockwave. I've caught a bunch of fish in the wintertime on that Shockwave, on that 3.5. That's a little bit smaller one. Just rig it on the Carolina rig. It's got that little boot tail. The plain white, pearl white is a really good in that wintertime, along with the Baby Destroyer. Those two are my combination in the wintertime. So you're gonna be having that little bit longer leader. You're gonna be having that 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce weight. You're gonna fish the heaviest weight that you can get away with without hanging up and without having to break off. That is the biggest deal all year with the Carolina rig, but especially in that winter time, you're gonna be getting that bait. You wanna cause a commotion. You wanna cause attention to come to where your bait is. You get that Carolina rig around where fish are kind of hanging out, looking for those shad, looking for maybe the last little bit of crawfish to be scooting around, or maybe the first crawfish to come out of their hibernation and start scooting around. That's where I think that Baby Destroyer looks a lot like a crawfish scooting around. The little Shockwave looks a lot like a a bait fish that's still kind of kicking a little bit around on the bottom. Fish those in the, we're talking, deeper water. 10 feet is kind of a minimum in the wintertime for me. 10 to 40 feet of water. I think that money area, most lakes now, is going to be 20 to 30 feet. That's we're talking throughout the middle part of the country where 20 feet is deeper water. That's kind of the deeper end is definitely where you want to go. All the herring type lakes in the southeast, Carolina rig is a really, really good way to fish deep. Everybody is still throwing the underspins and drop shots and the jig head minnows, but don't overlook that Carolina rig. That ball and chain in that wintertime can be really, really good. The very first time I ever saw or heard about a Carolina rig was a tournament, a Bassmaster tournament from back in the early 90s. I was just kind of getting started. I'd read a little bit about the Carolina rig, but I had never seen anything on the Carolina rig. And it was a wintertime tournament on Lake Hartwell. That was back before Hartwell had the blueback herring in it, and back before it was really, really good. But the first time I ever heard about it was on a tournament on Lake Hartwell. Guy was in second place. Guy was blowing it away on a rattle trap. He found one area that was just loaded. Second place by a good margin was on a Carolina rig. Guy had a long leader, and that was kind of the classic way to fish in the wintertime in that part of the country. It's the first time I'd ever heard of it, back in the early 90s. I just think that's really cool that it was so long ago. That the technique is still effective. It's effective year-round. It's definitely effective in the wintertime. Take that Carolina rig, prowl around those deeper areas. Don't be afraid of a little too much rock. If you get around too much rock, instead of having the big 1 ounce sinker, Maybe you go with 2 1/2 ounce sinkers. If you're getting around some areas that have a heavier rock and you're starting to get hung up a little too much, 2 smaller weights, 2 1/2 ounce smaller weights versus 1 ounce, or you know, half of whatever weight you're throwing can be a good way to not get hung up near as much. You can fish a Carolina rig all day, even in rough stuff. If you do it properly, you're going to be dragging it, trying to keep that bottom contact. But once you do have the weight come in contact with some rock or something on the bottom, you're going to lift your rod tip up and try to lift it over that cover and shake it over that cover. And a lot of times it'll just come right on through. Wintertime, Carolina rig, great combination. Be sure to fish it. Reel up all your slack, long sweeping hook sets, wintertime or anytime. Carolina rig, catching a lot of fish, big fish, all species of fish, and definitely catching bass year round. Carolina rig.